Okay, so today's video is all about self-coaching. Ideally, what I would love to have happen over the next few months is we start to shift our mindset and become our own best friend. Because at the end of the day, sometimes the inner dialogue that we say to ourselves and the way that we react to certain situations causes the most suffering, right? When at the end of the day, we want to become our own best friend. We want to become our own best cheerleader to support ourselves, encourage ourselves to grow, and know that it's okay to make mistakes. And when we berate ourselves in those moments, we're causing more damage than good. So there's a few different tools that I want to share with you today to help you set up your space to create this element of self-coaching. So the first piece is understanding how you can become the observer of your own mind. We have our brains and we understand that our brain's programming, our conditioning is what runs majority of the show. Now that's our subconscious mind. But you also have your conscious mind. The beauty of being a human being is that we get to witness our own thoughts, which is crazy, right? No other animal on this planet has the ability to do that we're aware of. And so being able to become the observer of your thoughts, and we want to detach from the thought that we're having because we are not our thoughts. We are not who we tell ourselves that we are. We can utilize our own power of our own mind to manage our mind to support our growth and expansion. So we want to start by starting to actually take a step back and become the observer of our thoughts. So the more that we can focus on doing this, the more of the ability that we have to change it. So through a lot of the processes, through a lot of the videos that I've shared with you so far, I'm asking you to start looking at your mindset. I'm asking you to start going, well, what's that thought that creates that feeling? Right? What are you telling yourself about this? What are some of the fears? What's going through your mind, right? Like all of this is actually helping you do this. And so what I would love for you to start to focus on is how you can step aside and go, isn't that interesting that I have that thought about this? We're literally dropping the judgment. I don't want you to judge your thoughts anymore. I want you to be curious and compassionate and start to go, oh, isn't that interesting? And through that awareness and through that compassion, we're able to make change. Berating someone to change never works. We want to love ourselves enough to make a change. So through these videos, through the self-coaching piece, it's about activating our self-love. It's about acknowledging what we bring to the table and that you are a human being having a human experience in this world, interacting with other human beings that are also having their own human experience. And the best thing that you can do is be kind to yourself, be loving. So one of the mantras that I used to use a lot of the time to change my inner dialogue was ask myself, what would love do? So in this situation, what would love do? If I've made a mistake, what would love say? Love would say, it's okay. You're doing the best you can. Keep going, right? If you've been in an interaction and maybe you want to show up as the best version of you, I ask myself, what would love do? How would love respond? And that's actually stopped me from having arguments or stopped me from wanting to need to be right, right? And it's helped me show up in the version of me that I really want to be. How would love deal with this situation? How would love respond? What would love say to yourself if you were going through this challenging time? And I honestly believe like that's the most powerful thing that you can do. That if you've had a hard day, what would love say? It's all right, love. Get a good night's sleep. You're going to be fine. Tomorrow will be a new day, right? If you failed at something, love would respond with love and compassion. You gave it a go, right? That's more than most people do. Good on you for failing. That means you're growing. That means you're learning. It's okay. Pick yourself up and try again tomorrow. Become your best cheerleader. Become your best friend and become your own cheerleader. Now, there's a couple of different tools that I want to share with you in order to do this. One is being the observer and then starting to actually question and argue with that self-talk, right? So if you're telling yourself something horrible, I want you to question it and go, is that even true? Is that true? Probably not, right? It's just something that you've thought many times before. And other times it's like literally having an argument. Like, you can't do that is maybe something you would say to yourself. And I would argue back, who says I can't? Watch me, right? Or who am I not to do this? I really want to do this. I'm passionate about this. This is what brings me joy. So I'm going to do it, right? So it's always like having that argument off with yourself. I know that sounds really silly, but honestly, it works. Okay. Another way to do that is if you're berating yourself or if you're talking negatively about yourself, or if you're talking yourself out of doing something you really want to do, almost like step into the observer's seat and imagine that that self-talk is sitting on a chair over here and you're here, and then talk to it, right? Actually coach, like what's going on for you? Why are you feeling this way? could it be possible that there's a different option here? Could it be possible that maybe you're looking at it in a negative way? Maybe we change the way that we look at it. It's okay. You're doing the best you can. Like, coach yourself through it, and you'll find that you'll feel better, which then will lead to a different action. So with all the work that you've done with me, you know that we have our conditioning and our programming in our subconscious mind. Then we have our thoughts about certain circumstances, and that's driven by what's going on with our programming. So as we go through life, we can either be reactive or proactive. And a lot of the time we're in our default mechanism where something happens and then we default to thoughts we've had in the past, or based on past experiences, our brain goes and reacts, okay? We want to create space in between the reaction to choosing how you want to react. So in those moments, and then choose the thoughts that are going to be the most useful for you. So if you have something that goes wrong, instead of going, oh, you idiot, right? This is what I used to say to myself. So this is why this is an example for you. I used to be like, oh, you idiot, how stupid, right? Like I literally used to judge myself. Now I have something happen and go, oh, isn't that interesting? I wonder why that happened, or what could I be learning here, or what did I do wrong and how can I change it? Rather than berating myself, right? Because if the automatic default is berating, you want to change that. It's one of the most important things to change. And sometimes I'll have to say to myself, would I say that to a friend? No, I wouldn't be like, no, you idiot, you don't know what you're doing. I wouldn't say that. And I wouldn't say it to someone I love. So I actually think about my niece. So I don't have kids, but I have a niece, and she is honestly my heart. She's my goddaughter, and she's just everything, and she's hilarious, and she makes mistakes, and she's got this amazing confidence. And when I'm having that reaction, I actually remind myself that, hey, I would never say that to her. So stop saying it to yourself. And if you do that enough, you'll pull yourself up quick enough to change the reframe. You change the reaction. So in coaching world, we call it a reframe. So you may recognize, because you'll first recognize after the fact. It won't be something that you'll pull up first. You'll say it to yourself and you're like, oh, that's not nice. We should have said that. And so what I do is I go cancel, and I say exactly what I want to say instead. So it might be like the reaction is, oh, what are you being, that's so stupid. Why did you do that? And then I go, oh, it's not something that I want to say. What would I say to my niece? I would say, it's all right. You figure it out, right? Keep going, you figure it out. Or, you know what, like everyone else makes mistakes. You can make mistakes. It's no big deal. Just keep moving forward. And so I would reframe that of like cancel and then say what I want to say instead. And if you do that enough, that then becomes your default, right? That support, that coaching, that encouragement in your mind will become your default mechanism. So learn to reframe those thoughts, learn to reframe what you're saying to yourself. The second one is using your imagination for good rather than worry. And I know that I've said this in a live call before, but I want to reiterate it. What we want to look at is what's useful. Is worry useful? What does that get us? Is thinking about all the what if scenarios that could possibly go wrong serving us in any way, shape, or form? Sometimes it is, because we want to look at the risk, right? If we're making a big decision, we want to look at the risk. What could go wrong? How can I mitigate that risk? Like, that makes sense in business. But if we worry because it's our default, or we go into the what if scenarios to overthink things, and it's not serving us. So we want to actually start to recognize where we're utilizing our brain. So what I do is I interrupt the pattern. So if I notice myself worrying, I notice myself, sometimes I'll notice the feeling, or sometimes I'll notice the thoughts that are running through my mind. If I'm worrying about something, I will do a state change. So I'll say stop. I literally would say this to myself out loud, or to myself in my head. I'd be like, stop. And then I will stand up. So I'm literally interrupting the pattern, because where I was sitting, what I was doing, that was running through my mind. So I've got a state change. So I'll stand up, walk to another room, and go, okay, how do I want to use my brain more effectively? And I will pay attention to mental rehearsing, or I'll visualize how I want something to go, or the outcome that I want to have. Or I will decide, okay, I'm going to take an action here, because sitting here and worrying about it isn't giving me anything. It's not serving me in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to take an action to rectify the situation. So I'll spend 10 or 15 minutes working on that problem to sort it out, so it's no longer a worry. So it's about utilizing and making sure that the power of your brain is being put to good use, right? Worry does not serve you. Stressing does not serve you. What if scenarios doesn't serve you. Put it to good use. Imagine how you want it to go instead. Number 3 is shifting from a lack mindset. So we're going to go into this much more in Elevated, obviously, but I just want to touch on this. So just starting to tack on one word onto things that you say starts to change your lack mindset to an abundant wealth mindset. So I like to think about, like, any time that I'm limiting myself. So I'll sometimes catch myself say something to someone, or I'll catch myself thinking something. And if it's like, oh, but I can't do that, or oh no, that's not for me, or I don't have that, or like anything like that that feels like a limitation, I will add the word yet, right? Because that's putting it out to the universe. I don't have that yet. It's not in my possession yet. I can't do that yet. It opens ourselves up and keeps us in a growth mindset because it's basically saying to us that it's possible, right? We don't want to shut off our possibilities by basically saying to ourselves, well, I can't have that. You can absolutely have that, right? You can do that. And so when we start to shift that to yet, it opens up the possibility and keeps your mind open and keeps your mind looking for the opportunities to learn that skill or to grow in that way, and allows that abundance to come into flow. So I want you just to start practicing that. So start adding on yet to the things that you say out loud and to yourself. And the last little piece here is starting to listen to your intuition. Your body is an incredible being that is communicating with you at all times. And if we feel disconnected from our body, where our head takes over, right? This is where we get caught up in overthinking. This is where we get caught up in non-action because our brain's trying to think things through with when the action is the result that needs to happen, or we're trying to think through a feeling, okay? So if you find that you're getting caught up in overthinking, I want you to start learning to trust your body. Your body is always communicating with you. So this is where we start to bring in a little bit of emotional intelligence and start to actually acknowledge how we feel on a regular basis. So even if it's a little practice of once a day, you sit down, you write down, what are some of the feelings that I felt today and why? And really get to know the feeling in your body, and use the emotional wheel that I shared with you. And I'll pop it down below the video as well. Use the emotional wheel to bring more of a vocabulary to your emotions. And the more that you can tune into your emotions, the more you learn from them, and the more that you get to choose how you want to feel. We often go back to our default emotional home because we have no other vocabulary around the positive emotions we want to feel, or we aren't choosing how we want to feel. I start my day by choosing how I want to feel today, right? Often what can happen is I wake up in the morning, and I'm human just like you, so I'm sure that you experience this too. I wake up in the morning and I roll over and I, turn my alarm off, and then I get out of bed and head to the bathroom, and sometimes I'll go into default thoughts around what happened yesterday, or I will just go, oh yeah, another day. Like, we are habit machines, right? Our brains are always following patterns that have always done before. So often what can happen, I'll wake up sometimes in the morning and be like, oh, I can't be bothered, or like, oh my God, another big day. And then realize, hang on a minute, I get to make my day. I get to choose how I want to do my day. I've got the fucking best day. I've got amazing clients in today. And sometimes I have to remind myself that, hey, why are you feeling like that? Because that's actually irrelevant, right? You're not feeling that. It's just the default. It's just your autopilot. And so I then go back to, okay, how do I want to feel today? And start to choose how I want to feel. And when you start to develop that relationship with your emotions and you're starting to listen to your emotions, that's when you can start to strengthen your relationship with your intuition. And the more that you follow your nudges, universal nudges, your internal nudges, the more magic happens, right? If you were to just to spend the next week listening to this internal nudge of like, oh, go do that. Oh, that sounds interesting. Oh, that would be fun. Oh, what about this? That sounds exciting. And just actually follow the nudge instead of going into whole like, oh, but I can't do that today, or I've got to do this, or all the things that we have on our plate, right? Sometimes the universe is trying to send messages through us, through our intuition. And sometimes when you follow that nudge, it'll lead to something that you never thought was possible, or it'll lead to meeting someone that would then lead to something else. And you couldn't have created that, but the universe is sending you these little nudges. So wanting to pay attention to those nudges and start to follow through on those breadcrumbs of joy, of fun, of excitement, and let that lead you. And, like, develop that relationship. It can be such a powerful relationship. And then you want to start to honor the word with yourself. So if you feel like you haven't got a really good relationship with your nudges, with your intuition, that's mostly because we've developed a lack of trust with our intuition. And how that happens is basically like, we will say we're going to do something, but we don't actually follow through. So we aren't able to trust that we can follow through on our own word. And so this is really important. Like, if you say you're going to do something, you've got to do it, because trusting yourself is the most important, right? Having self-trust is everything. It's very connected to self-love. So if you're able to spend some time getting to know your intuition and trusting your intuition, and then when you say you're going to do something, you follow through on it, that's that self-trust that comes into play. And then you can follow your intuition in a really powerful way, and it will guide you, will never steer you wrong. And so when you make decisions and you tune into your intuition, you're like, yes, is this a fuck yes or is this a fuck no? And then honor that, right? Don't do it if it's a fuck no. If it's a fuck yes, go after it, right? Honor that and follow your intuitions and create that fuck yes life. Like that's where I think about it. It's like creating that fuck yes life of like, that feels really good, go for it, and then follow through on it. The quicker you take action on those things as well can really impact the growth and your expansion that you can have. Because honestly, sometimes when you don't follow your intuition and you go against it, shit happens, all right? And you know, like I'm sure you've had experiences in the past where you didn't follow your intuition. You just knew that you shouldn't have taken on that client. You just knew that you shouldn't have done that thing. You just knew that you shouldn't have turned left down that street. Like those little intuition nudges are here to guide you. So build that relationship and start to trust that. And the more that you do that, you build such a strong sense of self and trust yourself more and more that you will be guided in so many massive ways. So I hope this video has served you. Please share with me as you're doing this, as you're doing this work. Share with me that you're practicing this. So if you need any support with it, just ask on Voxer. And yeah, honestly, this is such a powerful module. The self-coaching piece is everything because I want you to be able to be self-sufficient in that space and coach yourself and support yourself because that's everything, right? If you've got you've got to have your own back. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video and I cannot wait to see how you implement these things into your life and business.